You're tuned in to the Binge It Babe podcast with your host, me, Candace Estelle. All right, babes, let's get binging. Testing, hello. Hi. Hi, babes. Welcome to the third and final supernatural episode. And like I said, if this has been poorly executed or if I become really cool and, more well known in the future, and you guys are like, hey, please redo the supernatural ones because you were super green and some of that stuff didn't go well. Uh, I will. But for now, I hope this is done, after this, because this has been a full a few weeks of trying to even get to the point where I could film. Um, Also, it's been month and a half, maybe 2 months of watching the show so that I could film, and then multiple attempts at filming and lots of learning, and I've been really happy and it's been really fun, but I've also eaten this pie about 4 times now. So, I don't wanna eat this pie anymore. And if you're thinking, "Why wouldn't you just get a different kind of pie?" Because it's really hard to find pie where I am. It's pie is an American thing in my opinion. I mean, I'm sure it's probably actually French, but it's not as common where I am, and this is basically the only one that I can get without having to bake it myself. And since the boys don't cook in Supernatural, I made sure that nothing I grabbed was homemade because trying to stay true. So, yeah, I'm going to get on the road here, and I feel like for the last season, the sun went away. Oh well. I feel like for the last season, season 10, I had a really hard time remembering some of the details. And I get it that I forgot them, but I am sorry if like season 10's your favorite season and the Mark of Cain and Crowley being buddies with Dean is like really what you're into. I get it. And I'm sorry if I didn't do it enough justice. Just let me know and I will try again. Um, but I was looking at the synopsis and everything of each episode for going forward, and I do think the sun is back. I do think that I'm going to be able to do a much better job this round because these last 5 seasons I finished like 2 weeks ago when I first started trying to originally start filming. So these are way more fresh. Um, and also, let's be honest, way less precious to us as fans, I think. I do feel like it was around season 12 where I was like, please, please just let me go. Let me go. And like I said, I watched Smosh videos for like 2 straight days. I actually have been smoshing it up all morning. Um, that and Fortnite just to I really don't feel like eating this pie. Okay, that's what it is. I don't feel like eating this pie. I didn't I don't I'm a little tired of talking about Supernatural at this point, especially where I feel a little lonely. Um, and I think that these are all really good learning opportunities for me because, like I said, brand spanking new at this. You would know that because you're going to look and see how many episodes there are, and it will show after this one comes out 4. And these 3 I filmed like back to back to back, except the first one I did 3 times before the fourth one that stuck. So it's back to back to back to back to back to back. I think, regardless, I think we're going to have some fun. I know I had fun watching this show. One of my best friends from high school was actually here in the middle of me watching this. And I think that is also part of why, like, season 10, I'm having a harder time remembering because I was with my girlfriends and she was here for actually 3 weeks because someone hurt themselves and could not fly home. And she watched this show in high school. So she actually picked up with me around, I want to say, season 5 and watched it with me to around season 11 where that's all we could do because she wasn't well. So we couldn't go out or do anything. It was also quite rainy here. So we watched a lot of Supernatural together. And I think that's really lovely. But I also am now realizing that it meant I wasn't able to pay attention as much because we were laughing and joking and, kind of having more fun with each other. And I think that's really great. That's one of the most wonderful things about media is being able to share it with people. That's why I'm doing this, so I can share it with others and my thoughts and, actually talk throughout the day because I do spend a lot of my time alone and I'm just chilling by myself. And, Domino, Aspen, and Charlie, they don't really talk to me about TV shows because they don't pay any attention. I mean, Charlie's ridiculous and he sleeps like 20 hours a day. And I would think that something's wrong with him, but he is a cat, so that's just how it goes. Um, so yeah, we're gonna jump into it. Uh, I do miss my friend being here. It's kind of very sweet that I watched this for someone I love. I watched it for my cricket, and then I watched this with someone I love, and it changes things. So I also hope that if you're listening to my podcast and maybe you don't have anyone around, you can listen to it and maybe know my opinions on the things or kind of watch and then listen. Please watch and then listen because I will spoil everything. Accident, no accident, who's to say? Um, so make sure you watch and then listen, but it's almost like you're watching in real time again, right? And then you can listen to me have a conversation about something you enjoy, or maybe you don't enjoy, or maybe you notice something that I don't notice, or I forget to mention, or whatever. And so the thing I'm most excited about for this podcast is to be able to have conversations with people. Because one of my favorite things is I'll watch something and then I want to talk about it. I want to say, "Hey, here is how I felt. Can you believe this happened? What just went with that?" And I don't have anyone to really do that with. I tend to watch stuff pretty quickly, and I get through things and I do movies and TV way more than I think the average individual does, especially as an adult. But for me, like I said, I need that constant, situation. I heard something about ADHD where it's like 100% of your brain capacity needs to be taken 100% of the time while you're awake, right? So right now, if you're at 50%, then you can do 50% of your attention with something else, an audiobook, background noise, a podcast, music, anything like that. And I fully agree with that because that's 100% how I am. So, with that being how I am, like filming is actually a little bit unnerving for me because it is quiet and it has to be quiet so that you guys can hear me better. But it also means that I'm only doing one singular thing, and I find that kind of frustrating. However, I did notice that what helped was reading notes or reading synopses or whatever as I went helped me feel a little more engaged. So hopefully it's a good format for you as a watcher or a listener, and we can have it be more of a conversation because I really wish I could, interview the actors, directors, writers, producers, the crew and cast obviously and just be like, "Hey, what was your thought process here? Why did you do that? Is this a fancy thing? Do you have a fancy thing you want to tell us about?" And like for Supernatural, there's so much fan service, There's bloopers and there's cons and fans themselves notice things and bring up things. There's Supernatural wikis and it's really lovely and a beautiful resource. It's why I dove in here. And it's really kind of what I enjoy about it. I am a huge Marvel person. So for me, like having the Marvel lore and going back and forth and having all those conversations was totally something that I was really, really into. I feel like I've fallen off of Marvel recently. I won't say that that has anything to do with quality. That 100% more has to do with the fact that my life was in shambles and I was distracted and moving and buying a house and dealing with all of the things that go along with, uncoupling lives. So please don't be like, "Oh yeah, Marvel sucks now, blah, blah, blah." Because for one, I probably don't agree. And two, I couldn't tell you. I'm a little bit behind, probably by about a year. Um, okay, for real though, this time, tangent over. let's get into season 11. So we're going to do the rest of it, 11 through 15 now. And I'm going to do my best to stay on topic, but I do see I've already been talking for 10 minutes. So I can only do so much. Okay. I don't own flannel. I think I own flannel. No, I didn't. I don't think I've ever really owned flannel. I do, however, have had plaid. And currently, I got plaid on. And I think if you're unaware of the fabric, then you can pretend that this is flannel, right? There you go. It's the closest I could get, guys. And I'm not going to buy an outfit for something like this when it might not be something I would use again because that's super wasteful, both in money, resources, and I try not to buy fast fashion. So here we go. I got the plaid going on, and we got some cherry pie, which is good and tart, and it's got a great little crust on it. Um, but at this point, I've technically eaten two full pies because originally this was my first meal when I started filming. So actually, I was going to film, and then I couldn't get the camera things right, and I was missing stuff, but the pie was going to go bad, so I ate it. And then I had to buy another one. And then I filmed, I think, the first episode I was going to do seven, right? Through the first seven seasons. So cut it in two. So I had pie then. And then that didn't work. I tried again. Didn't work. I tried again, but the third time I think I did burgers because I was like, actually, I'm going to separate it for threes, And so I could add a meal in there. I did burgers. You'll never even see burgers because the last one is the one that I actually was able to maintain. And that one was steak and potatoes, which I forgot to put an egg on because I was doing steak and eggs like very classic diner meal. I just added blue cheese on top because I was in the mood for that. And I feel like Dean would frickin' love a blue cheese steak. But, um, I forgot the eggs and I'm not going to buy another steak and redo it for a fourth or fifth time. But here we go. Here's pie, which I'm bad at eating on camera. So I'll just, I'll try it and kind of not force myself to eat something that I'm not in the mood for right now. And at least it's not gross, right? It's pie. Everybody loves pie. Safe. Okay. So if you remember, the end of season 10 was Rowena using the Book of the Damned to help Sam remove the mark from Dean. And I believe also at this time Death is there to help with something, and I want to say that Dean kills Death, but also Sam might have been who does it. I do believe it's Dean. I cannot fully remember, and I should have checked, and I forgot. Okay. Death, as we knew him, gone. Rowena helps remove the mark. She's like, hey, this will unleash a great darkness. And Sam is, finally on the Dean team in terms of whatever it takes. And it does indeed release a great darkness. The darkness, which you don't get more dark than the darkness, I don't think. The void, the oblivion. I mean, even the empty is probably just as dark as the darkness, and we haven't even met the empty yet. So now it's opening on season 11, and we kind of see that Dean spoke with the darkness at one point, and it's like right when the darkness is released, and the darkness is a woman in this respect, and she is awesome. Like she's gorgeous. She pops up and she's like, "Hey, I was a part of you, so I understand you." Yes, ma'am. Oh, goodness. Yes. Hold on one second. We've got a co-host here. Yeah. Can you sit and be good? Yeah. There you go. So we kind of see these flashbacks of Dean and what I want to describe as like the center of a tornado. And she's just like, I know you, Dean. I've been a part of you. And you realize that the darkness was inside this mark of Cain. And she's basically like, I've been a part of you. I know who you are, and I won't hurt you, and you won't hurt me. And like, dips off. It's very interesting. And this is, yeah, this is also where I'm going to be bad about the actual episodes, I think, because stuff kind of happens quickly. But as far as I can remember, this is immediately when they hit the town. Yeah, they hit the town that the darkness's fog kind of rolled over, and it's making everyone sick. It's poisoning them. They got like these black gashes, and they're either getting violent or they're dying. Everyone's dying. Oh, stop, please. So this fog has rolled over, and it has like it's taking over these people, and when they are, you know, taken over, they get violent, they start attacking other people, and then those people get the sickness, and overall it's not ideal, obviously. I feel like the guy who gets the sickness, like he looked really familiar to me. The guy who ends up being Amara's father. Let me let me see if I can find him in the character lineup. Yeah. Okay, his name is Aaron Hill. And let's see. Oh my goodness, you're just so sweet. Let's see if he's in anything that I would have known him for. Oh, okay. Greek. I used to watch Greek. So he is in that. He's in quite a few other things, but only as like a one-off episode situation. And as someone who wouldn't count that, as I think that's why I find him familiar. I don't want to count that. But he is the dad of baby Amara, and baby Amara is apparently soulless or spiritless. I have no idea. But the darkness sucks into this baby. She goes from being Emily Swallow, the person who will also be the darkness for the rest of the show, and is, basically she's in her body form, and she talks to Dean, and she's like, we'll never hurt each other. You're hot. Or she doesn't say that, but I feel like that's exactly the vibe. And then she mists away, fogs out, complete destruction in that town. They're fighting it the best they can. And she zooms into this fresh baby, which is Amara. The dad is who names her, and then he dies from the sickness. And then, so that's the first episode of the season, which I just said I'm not going to do episodes wise, and I'm going to stick to that. Basically, for the first part of this season, what is happening is that Amara eats souls to gain her strength and to get bigger. And you have to keep in mind that there's a lot of moral ambiguity to what she's doing, because she's not a human, right? There's no right and wrong. There's no value for life, because for her, she is literally the antithesis of life, right? She's what comes after life. Not that she's heaven, she's darkness. She's everything in balance. So life is light and death is the darkness, however you want to look at that, I guess. Um and so she's not doing anything in terms of being evil. She feels like she's taking the souls, they make her stronger, and they are kept with her. And I found that really interesting, because in the very beginning of the season, when she's still a child and she's eating souls and she's like, I'm hungry, and she's very bratty and annoying, and I'm just thinking, oh, she's going to be a terrifying villain when she gets bigger. And she ends up not being that way at all. When she's bigger, she's she could do way more damage than she does. And I don't know if that's just the writers, you know, pulling the punches, or if it's the fact that they wanted to make her a little bit more likable. But to me, she's incredibly likable, and she's considered the big bad of the season, but I honestly don't feel like she's a villain. I don't. I do absolutely love when she's little and it's Crowley who takes her and Crowley who has her. Would you like to get down? Yeah. You cannot have pie because you are a kitten. But how about I put you down? Would you like that? You done? Thank you. Getting a little antsy. So I love that Crowley takes her, and Crowley is who starts kind of like raising her because Crowley recognizes that she's going to be so powerful. He's like, I want the child that eats souls. Absolutely. We need her on our team because, things have been bananas lately. And then she basically gets annoyed by him at one point because he's telling her she can't do something. And she's like, I can do whatever I want. I'm literally God's sister. And you think that's an interesting, little tidbit. And she just dips out. She leaves. She does whatever she wants. Now, I do want to point out that season 11 actually has one of the highest rated episodes, a 9.4 out of 10. And that is Baby. And that is the show that is complete, or the episode that is completely from the point of view of the Impala, which I think is just a really fun take because, I mean, we're anthropomorphizing so many concepts here of death and darkness and all of those things. And so to give the Impala a voice, I thought was really fun, especially since the Impala is such an important piece of Dean's character, right? It's a family heirloom. He's technically the reason his dad bought it because one of his many trips back in time, he tells John that that's going to be a great car that lasts a long, long time. The car is just as much a part of Dean as, Sam is a part of Dean and Cass is a part of Dean. I honestly, if I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure if Dean would choose Cass or Baby. Like if he was tossing it up, he'd probably be like, "The car doesn't know how to protect itself. Cass, you're an angel." Which is kind of messed up, but it's one of those things where you're just like, I don't know. I think this is also a time when Cass is still not fully at his power, but I'm not positive. Let me do some digging real quick. Absolutely. Okay. Cass is an angel again in season 11. He did get it back in season 10, which I thought so, but then I did such a poor job remembering that kind of tricked myself. Um, so I find that episode really, really nice. If you're wondering why I'm touching my face so much, if you can see me, it is because, I was holding Aspen and I don't want cat hair on my face, and that's just absolutely a possibility in this life and in this world. Next, we're moving on. We have that episode where Sam and Dean are at that bed and breakfast that seems to be haunted by Lizzie Borden. And Sam's very interesting love of serial killers pops up again. I think that's really bananas because he does have to run into John Wayne Gacy on more than one occasion, who was a serial killer, yes, but also a clown. And it's just like, Sammy, how does that make you feel? Like, are you excited to see him? Are you terrified? A little bit of both, some of neither? Which one is a stronger feeling? And so, if I could ask Sammy, the character, that is something I would ask him. Um, Amara is still growing up at this point because it's pretty early on in the show. And then we've got a Donna episode, which you betcha, so exciting. We love our Donna. And this one's kind of silly in my opinion because it is the one where it's the mascots that are doing the murders, and then there's of course a really dark and kind of valid reason, which I'm always really surprised with by these writers who are able to say, "Hey, yeah, gonna need an hour's worth of dialogue here, and we're going to, you know what? Let's make it where the mascots are haunted." And only when you put it on does the mascot start doing the haunting, and you won't remember it, but it's going to straight up be murdering people. And you're just like, what in the absolute what? How is that going to relate back? How is this not going to be incredibly silly? And this is a great episode for thinking about it like that. Because is it a fan favorite? No, it's, middle of the road in terms of how people feel about it. It's an 8 even out of 10, so a B, right? It's passing, but it's not flying colors. And I find it really interesting though, because if you stop and you think about it from the writing point of view, they probably had literally that snippet of like, what should the boys fight now? I don't know. Mascots? Mascots? Yeah, like, the OG furries. Yeah. How would we make that work? And then they do. They make it work in kind of a heartbreaking way because it's someone who had all of these mascots. Obviously, they get donated, so we do find out they all belong to one person. It's very important when it comes to ghost rules. And that he was murdered because his people around him thought that he had done something not great to children, so they went to go scare him and accidentally drop him off of a bridge. And it's kind of a really interesting take on, like, for one, vigilante behavior, small town behavior, but also someone who has a mental disability and who kind of gets taken advantage of. I mean, definitely, because it wasn't true. He had never done anything to the children. And then he is only murdering people who like had to do with the fact that he got murdered, you know? It's not innocent people, it's nothing like that. It is him seeking that revenge out. And it's, I don't know. I find it really interesting. It's not an episode where I'm like, I'm blown away, but I think it's really important to look at shows, especially when you love the show, and look at a show and say, that's not one of my favorite episodes. But I wonder what it was like to have to think about this concept and how they put it together. And I think how they put this concept together, which could have been incredibly silly and cheesy, they did a really great job, right? It's well done in terms of the fact that it elicits emotional response. Unless you're a monster, it keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's kind of gray because you're not really upset at the ghost, but you also really understand where the guys who hurt him are coming from, and so it's all around one of those episodes where you're just like, I guess it's okay. Okay, so moving on from Donna, who we love, is an episode that I actually really treasure. And I wouldn't say it might be in a top 10 episode for me. And I think it's just because it's very sweet. And once again, it's one of these things where these writers had to write something that's completely ridiculous and bananas and make you care. And I think that that is always incredibly valuable. So this is Just My Imagination. It's episode 8. And it is where the imaginary friends are being murdered. And Sam used to have an imaginary friend, and he goes and asks Sam for help because he knew that Sam was a hunter growing up and stuff like that. And it's just, or no, he doesn't find Sam for that. He is at the murder scene. But unless you're someone who has an imaginary friend, so a child, specifically a child with an imaginary friend, then you can't see them. And I'm trying to remember what they're called. What are they called? Xana. I couldn't let it go. Okay, they're called Xana. Um, so back to how this is like a really ridiculous and silly plot that I feel like was executed fairly well. It's an 8.8. It's pretty good for the fact that it's an out there concept, right? And it is that Sam and Dean show up because this little girl is screaming that her imaginary friend was killed and she's losing it. And they're like, hey, maybe we check to see if this is a thing for us. And it does end up being a thing for them because it is Xana who are being murdered by someone. And the Xana are obviously magic in some way. I feel like the show only calls anything that's not human, or like in our normal everyday world, they call them monsters, but I wouldn't say that Xana in any way are monsters. Even Dean is on board with them. And you find out that Sam had one when he was a child because he was lonely, and his name was Sully. And I don't know why, but Nick Torrance does such a good job and is just so lovely and wonderful the whole time. And you get the backstory, right? Like he lost a kid. He felt really guilty about Sam. Sam's a little ass to him when he was a child, which you also can't blame Sam because Sam is a child and also didn't realize that he really was a real thing. And it's really heartwarming in a way. It's also hilarious to me. That one point, because like I said, unless you have an imaginary friend or Xana allows you to see them, then you can't see them. So the mom who's trying to explain that her daughter is freaking out about her bedroom, and she's like, she's saying that there's, glittery blood everywhere. And the guys can see it. Sully is standing there. You can see the dead imaginary friend in the room. And she's sitting there and she touches her face, and it's absolutely the matchmaker scene from Mulan, except it's just so much more gross because it's, blood, but it's covered in glitter. And she's just touching herself, so she looks terrifying. And they're like, you should take a shower and you should really clean this room. Just, it'll help her for sure, for sure. And I don't know. It was so funny to me. And then you find out that, like, Sam, like I said, he leaves his imaginary friend. He does it in a kind of mean way, and it broke his friend's heart. It broke Sully's heart. I think I also really enjoy him running up to his best friend, Sully's best friend, which is the Xana that would have 100% been Dean's had Dean ever had an imaginary friend. And Dean's like, "What even is your, like, superpower?" And he's like, "Oh, I play really good air guitar." And Dean's like, I play air guitar." And he's like, "No, no, like, I play air guitar." And then he proceeds to do a really cool riff, but you can hear it. Obviously, it's air guitar. And the face that Dean makes is just like, oh, like 100% they are vibing. And I just thought that was so cute and so fun. And it's once again where these writers took a really interesting concept that maybe the Xana is a legitimate thing in that culture. I don't even remember which culture they said it was. It was like Romania or Hungary or something like that. And then they built a little story around it and they made you care, right? There's heart and there's soul. And I think that, especially in the later seasons, when a lot of storylines are played out because they've done them all, it's nice to have a little bit of heart and a little bit of silliness and fun, but still have the characters be who they are. And so I personally very much so enjoy Just My Imagination. But let's get back to the not so fun stuff, which is that Amara is just she's killing people left and right. And once again, I don't feel like it's evil. It's just it's happening. It's not anything that I would say that she's like, I'm doing this to hurt you necessarily. It's not like I murder for funsies like Lucifer. It's like a little bit I'm getting power, and a little bit it's just a human, and I don't understand the value of humans because I've been locked up kind of in someone's body, it seems like, for all of time. And so this is also where we reintroduce Lucifer, who's in the cage still. And Sam is like, Crowley, Rowena, talk to him. He's who helped cage the darkness before with God. Like, maybe he will help us again. He's not helpful, okay? He's not helpful, and I'm always annoyed when I see him. And I know that he's probably a fan favorite, but I just can't stand him. And again, I don't mean the human being that is Mark Pellegrino. I mean the character that is Lucifer and the character that is Nick. Both of them are absolutely insufferable to me. They're not fun villains. They're not anti-heroes. He just annoys me all of the time. If it helps, Michael also pretty down on the list there for me liking him. Either universe Michael. A very important plot point for season 11 is that Sam, Cass at the cage, Lucifer's there, and Lucifer doesn't have um, a vessel really, and so Cass is just like, "Can you do it?" And Lucifer's like, "Psha, done it before, I'll do it again. Is what it is. No big thing. Who gives a shit?" And Cass is like, "All right." And bada bing, bada boom, you got a Lucifer in a Cass suit. And I do enjoy that because, for one, it's still Misha Collins. So that's enjoyable. And Misha Collins so often ends up being a different character, but in the same body. He's Jimmy, he's Lucifer, he's the Empty. He's Cass. And that's pretty impressive. He does a weird voice or attitude or changes his mannerisms for everything he does. and it's fantastic. He does a great job. And I think I've made it very clear that I love Cass and that he is my absolute favorite. Um, and I think I've also made it very clear that I'm really sick of how often he doesn't get to just be Cass. Because once again, here, he is Lucifer for a decent couple of episodes, and I just find it annoying. I do enjoy him being Lucifer. He does a great job, but I just miss Cass. And I'm always like, no, don't trust him, Dean. Don't trust him, Sam. It's Lucifer. Also, where's Cass? Let him say something about pizza. Then they're trying to find these hands of God, which are basically super powerful weapons. And they're like, obviously, if God touched it, then it's going to be real powerful. And we'll use that to be able to defeat Amara. Because Amara, we got to put her away. She's messing things up. And then Dean goes back in time again. Once again, World War II. Like, there's so much Nazi stuff that happens in the latter half of the show that I find so annoying. And I think I've made that very clear last time. But last time at least it was like, oh, here's a little taste. We did the Nazi thing. They don't move on from it. It happens so much more. And it's like Nazis problem. Yes, absolutely. But can we move on from that? Not from not from the travesty that was World War II, not from the travesty of like all of the people losing their lives, you know, not from the fact that he was a monster, but in this supernatural show where we're kind of making light of it in a way. And isn't that a little uncomfortable? Because yeah, he's still the bad guy, but I feel like there's I'll just pop this in because it's the same episode. But in season 12, when Dean kills Hitler, because the Thule are trying to bring him back or whatever, and then that is like a punchline for a while. And I found it so annoying. One, because it's not funny. Two, because it was so far fetched. And yeah, I don't even know if I have a third point. Third point, I just found it annoying. Dean says, well, and I killed Hitler, like constantly. And it's just like, okay, okay. Like it wasn't even funny the first time it was said. It's funny when Jody brings it up and she's like, "Yay, and you keep telling me about killing Hitler and all right." Because that's exactly how I feel as a viewer. Where I'm like, "All right." Like I already kind of had to be on board for this little arc and I'm annoyed by it. Regardless, they go back in time to deal with to go get that hand of God, which is honestly, it looks like a shiny piece of driftwood. And I think that's where he meets Delphine, who is like a spy for the Men of Letters, but it's a woman, which is very interesting. And he's on a submarine, and the submarine finds out that they never make it. And then he uses the hand of God to get out of there and finds out that it's one-time use situation. So I don't know. Also, the whole submarine is warded, so Dean is dropped off there, but Cass slash Lucifer can't get into the submarine and bounce back in time. And Dean is stuck in the past, and they're like, "Well, go save him, Cass." And it's Lucifer, and Lucifer's like, "Oh, I don't even care about saving him. Like, why would I want to do this? Who cares?" So, moving on. They get the piece. It doesn't work very well. It's a one and done. And as far as I remember, Lucifer brings Dean back. Dean has already used the piece. Dean and Sam are standing there. They have the little piece, and then Lucifer tries to kill them. And he's like, haha, I'm actually Lucifer, and I don't have to pretend anymore. And then the piece doesn't work, which again, convenient. We do have kind of a throwback, but also in the present episode that happens where you get to see these flashbacks of Bobby and Rufus chasing this thing that also Sam and Dean end up chasing in the same house, and they kind of see each other in the house because it's like a place out of time where the monster actually lives and keeps the children that it's taking. Um, and if you're wondering, well, how did it come back? Bobby's pretty thorough. He is. Him and Rufus do a great job, and they have the warding behind some wallpaper. But when the house is sold, they're taking off the wallpaper and they're like, this is an ugly, weird red rune. I don't even think they know the word rune. And they go over it, and that allows the creature back in the house. And since their home is outside of time, Bobby was kidnapped by it when he originally was hunting it with Rufus. And then Dean gets kidnapped by it. And so they do kind of cross paths at one point, and it's a little bittersweet. And it's always nice to see Bobby as Bobby. And so I kind of enjoy it, but it's also a little bit of a tease. I continue to think that they just did the show a disservice by getting rid of Bobby. And I think that's, they know it. And I think that's why they bring him back from alternate universe land. But it's not the same Bobby, and he doesn't act the same. And so it's not the same effect. It's like if you had a cat and then your cat died and no one tells you your cat died and they just give you another cat, but the other cat kind of sucks, just looks the same, and you're like, why are you mean to me all of a sudden? What is happening? That's not why I love the cat. I didn't love the cat because it looked like that, hopefully. I love the cat because the cat, and I had a bond. I have a cat, so we have a bond. If someone tried to replace her or Charlie, like I would know immediately. For one, because like Aspen's so sweet and loves me so much, and I've had her since I was a teenager. And Charlie is just adorably sweet. And I just could not believe that someone would be able to actually trade those out. That's not even a thing we should be talking about. I'm going to move on. The next episode is, or like the following episodes, we have Billy show up. She's a Reaper, and Dean's trying to make a deal with her, and Billy doesn't want to play that way, right? And so, yeah, because Dean almost kills himself in order to like try to get the attention of the Reaper. And Sam wasn't dead. So, okay, I'm going to restart talking about this episode. Okay, so next episode I want to talk about is Red Meat. And this is the episode where we start out with Sam basically getting killed right from the get-go. We're in a cabin. There's a couple who are screaming and scared, so they're obviously the people Sam and Dean are there to save. We figure out it's werewolves, and then Sam gets hurt, not bit, just hurt. And the guy of this couple is like, leave him. He's going to slow us down. He's going to die. And Dean's like, no, I'm going to make a little, like a carry thing, and you're going to carry him and I'm going to carry him. We'll get out of here just fine. Don't worry about it. And while Dean is grabbing those materials, that guy like strangles Sam like a monster, which just goes to show that once again, the most monsteriest monsters of this show are always the humans. So he's doing some strangling, and his wife's in another room. She does not know that this happened. And she comes in and she's like, is he dead? And he's like, oh, for sure. Sam is not dead. He just kind of like is knocked unconscious by this because he's a Winchester, and this little bitch isn't going to take him out. And Dean comes in and he's like, he's dead. We can't carry him. We need to go. And then the werewolves come back and they're all like, roar, bark, bark, werewolves. And so they leave. They're able to kill the werewolves. And then Dean, being in the hospital, is like, I'm going to try to kill myself so that I can see a Reaper and I can make a deal. And Billy has already explained that she is not about that life. And then when he's in that other world, the veil, I guess, you find out that Sam didn't die, and he gets back up and he's like walking out. And also, the guy who tries to kill him, he did get bit by a werewolf. So he not only is a human murderer, but also now a monster and an asshole. He sucks. And so they do end up killing him. And I think that that's great because he sucks. And I don't know. It's an episode that kind of annoys me because that guy literally would have been dead without Sam and Dean, and then he goes and does that. And I know that people do weird things when they're scared or when they feel like, I don't know, their backs are up against a wall. I don't know how to explain it. I think he's a jerk and I think he sucks. And I'm moving on from it. Okay. So next episode I want to discuss is episode 20. It's Don't Call Me Shirley of season 11. And this is the episode where Amara unleashes like that deep, diggity dark fog that's way more powerful than her first round of fog, and it's got the same virus that Sam like survived in the first couple of episodes. Dean didn't even know he was sick, you know. And this is also where Chuck runs around and he grabs Metatron and he's like, "Hey, you know how you're my scribe? You should help me because I'm writing a book." And Chuck is like, "Oh God," or not Chuck. Chuck is God. Metatron's like, "Oh God, of course." And he's like, "Oh, don't call me God." It's so embarrassing. It's not like I gave myself the moniker because I am God. Go ahead and just call me Chuck. Call me Chuck. It's very unassuming. Anyway, read my book. It's shit. And Metatron basically is like, hey, this book is kind of it's lackluster. It's missing stuff. You're not telling anything. There's no real storyline. There's a lot of talking about you being Chuck. And obviously, this is also where it's like fully confirmed that Chuck is God, which for anyone watching the show, there's a really good chance you caught on to that during Swan Song because he literally says the end and or is it, whatever. And he's the writer there. And you could take that as well, he was the prophet, so he's writing and is what it is. But then he also shows up in that fan favorite episode from last season that I adore at the girls' theater. And he's like, yeah, you did a great job. And once again, you could write that off as, oh, it's because he's a writer. Here's what you can't write off: there can only be one prophet at any given time, one prophet of the Lord, ever. And Chuck was the prophet, but no, he wasn't. Kevin became the prophet, and then we see Chuck again. So if you thought Chuck was dead, okay, sure, whatever. But then we see Kevin, and then we see Chuck, which means Chuck never died, i.e., not a prophet. So if you put all of that stuff together, yeah, Chuck is God. I was delighted by this. When I watched Swan Song, I spent a good half hour like Googling, like, who is Chuck really? What is really happening? Like, who is blah, blah, blah. And then I kind of forgot about him because he's gone for a really long time. And then when he popped back up, I was like, oh, what? Yes. And then he's back again. And I couldn't have been more excited. And that's past tense for a reason because he comes back and he sucks. He sucks. He sucks. He's only okay right now, and then he just continues to be a bitch. And it's kind of a bummer because I really like the actor playing him. I, love the concept of God. I enjoyed the fact that he was hands-on, that he was funny, that he's having all this fun. It's nice to see him get wrathful because that's a very, Old Testament God, I can respect all of that. But just as a character, they also kind of made him whiny. And I just don't feel like that lines up, you know? Personal opinion, but it is nice to see Chuck. And it's funny that he's trying to write his book because he thinks Amara will win. And I also think it's nice to see a God character feeling vulnerable like that, right? Because if God dies, the whole universe ends. Is what the gist is there, right? It's if God dies, the universe is out of balance, the sun will die, it's it's done for. And and so it's cool to see him. Yeah. So then we've got where Sam and Dean try to go rescue Lucifer from Amara, but they're not really trying to rescue Lucifer. It's because he's wearing a Cass suit. And we all love Cass. We got to go save Cass. And Baby's not in trouble, so we'll be fine. Though I do believe that Baby gets hit in this episode and Dean gets really upset. And we've also very much seen that implication that Amara said, you couldn't hurt me, Dean, come into play multiple times now because he cannot kill her. He can't do anything to actually hurt her. And she won't hurt him. And I found that a really interesting dynamic because it's like, oh, hands behind your back. Your main big bad this season, and Dino can't do a damn thing about it because he loves her. Oh well. Okay. So here's where we're at. It's towards the end of the season. We haven't figured out how to actually get rid of Amara. Chuck is finally helping and he's like, "We can't kill her. There needs to be balance. We just need to lock her away. And so the guys start devising that plan, and he's like, I don't want to do it really, but we have to because otherwise she'll get rid of everything. On the other hand, we're completely aware that Amara is just angry that she's been locked up for eternity, because God made the world and the angels and everything. And she was like, I don't want all of this. This is too much. I'm uninterested. And he was like, well, I love it. Love the attention, love the fans, love everything I've done. Leave it be. I'm very pro life and all that it has to offer, but I totally understand her point. We're like, they were equals. And then he kept creating stuff, and she is the antithesis of that. So it's probably really difficult, you know? It's very Wednesday and Enid from the Wednesday series, where she's all bright lights and colors, and Wednesday is like cold and dark about it, except one of them chose not to respect the other at all. And that's a problem. That's the imbalance. And that's very much so that prideful, egotistical God that we are all quite aware of. And there is this like race for them to be able to fix this. Rowena is helping. Crowley is helping. God is helping. I really love the little exchange between Rowena and Crowley, where we find out that, yeah, he does consider them villains, but he loves to see their story. And that's just a little bit funny because that is exactly how people who, read feel about bad characters sometimes, about the bad guys, especially Rowena and Crowley. He's like, I have to admit, I enjoy what you're up to, but not you, And they also have that joke about how kids are. I think that's really interesting. A nice little bridge between characters. And there's a lot of buildup in this season of like, we got to get rid of the darkness. And it just crumbles away. It ends. The last episode, like, we're expecting the world to end. Chuck has been hurt by Amara, and because she was going to let him just kill her. She was like, fine, kill me if you must, because they get the jump on her. And she's being very peaceful. Um, and he starts to go to lock her up, not be peaceful, just lock her up. And once again, of course, God's going to do it in a Mark way. And now Sam has to carry it because Dean's already carried it. So he's tainted and he can't do that again. And it's like, God, you could have thought of a different way to lock her up because this Mark of Cain literally tainted your favorite son, Lucifer. Now he's the devil. Lucifer gave it to Cain, first murderer, made lots of demons, did lots of murders. And then Dean turned into a demon. And it's like, maybe, creator of all things, we figure out a different type of box, like one that doesn't rely on a soul, you know? So, personal issue with it. Anyway, Chuck is hurt. And then the next episode, they're just like, everything's over because Chuck is dying. So the sun is dying. So everything's dying. And it's a ghost town. People are freaking out. People are losing it. And finally, Dean just goes to Amara and makes a plea with her. And then she's like, he's hurt me. And Chuck is basically like, I know I have, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And, at one point, Chuck was going to kind of do I would say, the right thing. Maybe not necessarily the best thing, but the right thing. And he was like, I'll let her lock me away. And as long as she leaves my worlds alone. And it doesn't come to that. He basically says, I'm sorry. And she's like, me too. And they hug and they put everything back to normal. And that's it. So it's a lot of vamping. It is a lot. And then it kind of just peters out. And I get it because how do you actually beat that level? And it's kind of nice to see them rekindle, their not friendship necessarily, but their um, familial tie. And then they're like, hey, we're going to go for a little while and just reconnect and figure each other out and like spend some time in another universe. And then they just disappear, but not before Amara goes, Dean, I love you, basically. And so here's a little gift for you because you gave me what I needed most in life. So I'm going to give you something that you need. Here's a gift. And that gift is his mom, is Mary Winchester. And I have spoken so much about how emotional I feel about Dean and his mom. He loves her so, so much. And then we're going to get to season 12. Looks like I need to change out a battery, so I'll be back 1 second. Okay, season 12, here we go. So we've got Cass back, I believe. And Lucifer obviously needs a body, and he is great at manipulating. Just ask Nick, he'll get his body. And then we've got Mary back to life after 30 to 35 years. I think it's 30. And then maybe 35. I'm not even sure. And then we've got Rowena and Crowley. And at this point, Crowley is definitely he's an asset, right? He's constantly helping. We've also got Rowena, who started off very manipulative and a total, just absolute bitch, to being completely and totally enjoyable. She's very powerful. She's very smart. She's obviously got her own agenda a lot of the time, but most of it is just, I want my full powers back that the Grand Coven has stolen. And I don't really care about my son, but she does start to care about him. And you can tell that she loves him and that he loves her. And, Crowley has a son too, who he doesn't care about, like way back when Bobby was going to burn his bones. But then you find out Crowley also does care about his son, and they kind of have a little bit of a relationship, and he makes sure that he doesn't die in a shipwreck and is instead brought, in real time. And we also have, Rowena, who not last season, I believe, but the season before had her relationship where you find out that after she was cast out of where she was from when she left Crowley, a family took her in far, far away from where she was from. And she took care of them with magic, and they took care of her when she was weak. And she watched their boy grow and, become a man. And his name was Oscar. And when he got older, she gave him basically the gift of immortality because she loved him so much. And then at one point, she had to sacrifice him because it was the only way to win whatever they were trying to win at that point. I don't remember. And she never shows it, but she's really upset about it. Like she doesn't really bring it up again for a while. And when she does, it's hilarious. She's also incredibly um, cunning. She keeps putting the little sachets in her body to keep her alive. And like Lucifer has broken her neck. Um, I don't think he's done it. Yeah, he hasn't done it yet, but he's gonna kill her in another brutal way. And she was being like, she was serving Lucifer because she figured that's the horse to bet on. My son is not. And Lucifer has killed Crowley as well, and they're both survivors. So around season 12 is where their stories feel just as valuable to me as the Winchester stories. Like, I'm super into Rowena. I have enjoyed Crowley basically the whole time, even when he was being completely naughty. I think he might be the reason. No. Yeah. I think he might have been the reason Ellen and Joe die. And I think that was the only time where I was just like, no, no. But we're moving on. It's season 12, you know, uh, Dean dealing with the fact that his mom is around, and Sam, I believe, has been kidnapped. Yes. Here we go. One of my least favorite storylines of the entire series, and there is some stinkers. Um, the British men of letters, pompous assholes, suck. Hate them. Hate them. Hate them. And so this is like where his mom shows up. Sam, I think, goes into the bunker or something, gets kidnapped by Tony, and is trying to stay alive. And she's doing all kinds of messed up stuff to him, to his brain, to everything, like straight up torturing him. You got the Chinese water torture with the dripping, or I think it's more than dripping. So it might be worse than that. I don't know. But you've got the straight up mental and physical torture that they're doing so that they can get information from him because they've decided that they don't like how they're doing anything, and messing with the sun was last the last straw. Not not when the apocalypse was about to happen, not when all of the angels in heaven fell to earth. None of that. No, no, no. Now is when we're going to bring in these incredibly pompous, horrible characters that you never, ever, never, ever, ever enjoy. So in walks Tony, and in walks Ketch, who, even when he is a good guy, couldn't care less about him. And then Sam is just, he's taken for a little while. He tries pretty hard to get out. He gets kind of close, but they're well trained. They're men of letters, but they're worse. And then on the other hand, we've got Sam, who's locked up. We've got the stupid British men of letters. And then on the other hand, we've got Lucifer, who's tricked a rock star into being his vessel. And they named him Vince Vincenti. It's contrived and I hate it. So I'm just going to move on. They get Sam. Surprise, surprise, he survives. They find out about the British men of letters, and then we find out, oh, Tony was rogue. We just went to help. We want you guys to join us. We've heard so much, and it's just BS. Um, Mary starts going on hunts with them, and look, I was so excited at the end of season 11 when Mary all of a sudden is there. I could not have been more excited for Dean, for Sam. Sam has no memory of this woman, and I don't like her. She is cold, she's distant, and everyone's like, "Oh, you have to give her a break, she was dead." For one, she doesn't remember that. She does not remember being dead. So, not a good excuse. She does pop up in a totally different day and age and finds out that her husband's dead. Great. That is difficult to deal with. I have a hard time with technology sometimes, and I am an engineer, you know? And so, yeah, that absolutely a problem. But she didn't not know she was a mother. So when she figures out, oh, these are my sons, I've missed their entire lives, not my fault. Of course not. But she is so cold. It's not, I really want to get to know you. I want to make up for all the lost time. It's, I need space and I need distance and I need to be left alone because I don't want to deal with this. I don't know how to deal with this. You didn't die and not know that you had two children. Just because they're not children anymore doesn't mean you can just be like, well, you don't really need me. And I'm a grown ass woman, so later, skater. And that's exactly what she does. She cuts her hair short because that's what you have to do when you're having a mental breakdown. We talked about this. And then she just dips off and then shows up at like a hunter funeral. And that's when they see her. She barely communicates with them, and Dean so desperately just wants her to be there and to hold her and to actually be warm like a mother should be. And honestly, I don't have children. I mean, I have the pets, but if I had a child and then I died or was in a coma even for a long time and I woke up, I would have a lot to deal with, but I certainly wouldn't alienate myself and be like, but I don't want anything to do with my children. That's just not a great way to behave. And it has pissed me off the first time I watched it. It pissed me off the second time I watched it. It pisses me off every time I talk to Cricket about it. And she's like, yeah, totally. I hate this storyline too. Why did they make her that way? Why did they make her that way? At one point, when we get to the alternate universe, which is going to happen in this episode. So, yeah, that happens. When we get to the alternate universe and then she is stuck, they do everything in their power to get her back. They do get her. And she's like, oh, I'm not going to come. I feel a lot of loyalty to these people. And I've been fighting with them for like a whole month. And I know that I've been your mother your whole lives, but I'm not into this and I'm super into that because they need me. Your kids need you, bitch. Like these people, yeah, it sucks over there in Apocalypse World. Yeah, they need help. Your kids do too. They've been doing shit like fighting Lucifer for the last decade. Could you get your head out of your ass and actually be a mother? I feel very passionately about this storyline, and I will just leave those chips where they may, because I get it from like a psychological standpoint, but at no point does she deserve the love or admiration that Dean held out for her his whole life, changed his whole life when she passed away and everything. And she's just like, well, that's not the life I wanted for you. Anyway, gotta go. I hate the writers for doing that because we all loved this woman. And then you meet her. It's that don't meet your idols thing, except it's your mother. And it sucks when you have a shitty mother. So it pisses me off and I have to move on. Um, Honestly, Rowena is a better mother to the boys. I mean, she does call Sam a giant, which is hilarious to me, and she, tolerates them a lot, but she does a lot for them as well and keeps them safe. Rowena's a better mother to Crowley, in my opinion. She at least shows up, she's begrudging about it, but she's there. I don't know. I have to let it go. I get so angry about it, and it is a TV show, and I need to calm down. I'll calm down by explaining the next stupid episode that, like I said already, annoys the crap out of me, is the one you've been waiting for. It's episode 5. It's where we find out that we've got living relatives of Adolf Hitler, which, like, it's not your fault that that's your bloodline. Whatever. We get that. But it's also where we find out that the soul of Hitler is trapped in a 1930s pocket watch, and Nazi necromancers are doing whatever they can to resurrect him. And then, like I said, we get the wonderful continual line of Dean getting to tell everyone that he killed Hitler. And I think it may have been funny if it only happened once, but it doesn't. It happens a lot. And also, this isn't even the first or last, I think, Nazi reference. And it's bizarre to me. Like, this is, I think, the third one where they're at some point having to fight the Germans as German Nazis, or, yeah, the Tool at one point, Nazi necromancers. And it's like, World War II, you're beating a dead horse there. The story has been told a lot. And also by more qualified people, like the people that were actually there and are still alive. And here we are kind of making it a little bit of a joke, a little bit of a farce. And I think it's also one of those things where culturally we're like, who's the worst guy we can think of? And let's make it where our heroes can kill him. And yeah, I get it. Hitler, large scale, everyone knows the name, elicits a reaction. And in that way, do I get it? Yes. Does it feel like a cheap shot? Yes. They're not trying there. They're like, well, everyone hates Hitler. So easy win. And it feels contrived. Yeah, like I said, there's the Hunter funeral where we find Mary again. Also, people die. Surprise, surprise. There's a demon. People are betraying people. I'm just annoyed the entire episode with Mary and how her behavior is. Um, then we've got Lucifer being a rock star and being an absolute creep about it. And just, I don't know. Season 12 is a hard watch as a fan, as someone who had at this point put in weeks of my time. I can't imagine watching it in real time and being like, wow, this week we got to deal with Nazi necromancers. Okay. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe a lot of people like it. Nope, it's got 7.4. So never mind. Just so we're aware, most of these episodes hover in the 8s to mid 9s, right? So 8 to 9.7, I believe, is the highest rated one. And they usually land around 8.5 to 8.8. So if you've got one that's in the 7s, that's not great. The worst rated one is 5.4. It's Bloodlines. I feel like Lucifer loses the Vince Vincente body. Like something happens there. And eventually he takes over the president's body. and that's pretty important. Um, and Sam and Dean get caught in like a government facility, basically, and and they're stuck. And then the next episode is like Sam and Dean trying to escape, and Cass with Mary trying to rescue them. And then the next episode is just it's story fodder, right? It's, hey, let's talk about Nephilims again. And this time we're talking about this woman who angels went and immediately killed her daughter, assuming she was a Nephilim. She wasn't, she was human. And then she figures out a way to use angel magic because she had been studying angels and studying Enochian to stay alive and to just be slaying angels. And you're like, whoa, that's a crazy way to behave. But then you find out that the angel that said that she had a Nephilim knew it wasn't a Nephilim and just didn't like that he was not her boyfriend and that a different angel was. And it's just like, damn, tale as old as time, am I right? But Lily's kind of cool. She's really powerful, and I do feel bad for her. It's a fun enough episode. Episode 11 is probably my favorite episode of the season. It's regarding Dean, and I love the Dean Rowena dynamic. Dean has a curse placed on him, and he has a memory issue. And as it goes, it's progressively worse. This memory issue to the point where he doesn't know who he is. He forgets, he'll forget how to breathe and swallow, which is terrifying. It's terrifying. But Rowena's there, and she's there to take care of him, and she does actually take care of him, and she helps find the witches who put that on her. She gets a nice little powerful book, which I think Sam takes from her immediately. Why she allows him to take it is beyond me, but she does. And she helps Dean, and she has like really heartfelt conversations with him because she knows he won't remember it. And she keeps him alive. My favorite is when she puts the sticky notes in the car and she's like, wait, stop. And, all of this stuff. It's just a really sweet, um, loving conversation between two individuals. And probably my favorite episode of the season, and it is rated pretty well. It's rated an 8.9. So I've got good taste, you guys, because the ones I hate, it seems like a lot of people dislike. Okay, so like I said, Sam and Dean are saved from the presidential bunker, and Lucifer kind of noped out of that body pretty quickly. He did what he had to do, which was sleep with Kelly Klein as the president because she was in a relationship with him. And the president, I guess, is not married in this scenario, which is kind of crazy to me that that could even be a thing that happens. Because I don't believe that's happened yet, where a president um, has been unmarried and been elected president. Like, I know that's not the standard. I think it should be fine, but it's one of those things where it's like, oh yes, he's sleeping with his secretary. Well, that's definitely happened before, but it's not cheating, and that's never happened before. Um, anyway, so Lucifer had kind of noped out of that body, and Kelly is pregnant. But Kelly's not pregnant with the president's child like she thought originally. She's obviously pregnant with a Nephilim, and that is why they bring up Lily Sunder's story. And it's also very important to note that this would be a Nephilim that's not just half angel, half human. This is half archangel, half human. And that's a much, much bigger deal. Something else that starts happening is that Mary is hunting, right? She's not hunting with the boys because she's very busy being out on her own. And she is hunting with the British men of letters. Even though they tortured Sam and almost killed him, she decides, well, they are doing good work. And to be honest, it does seem like they are. They've got really cool toys, they're getting stuff done, but they're not a cool organization. We don't ever like them. We don't like them. Okay. And Mary is finally revealing to the boys, actually, I've been helping with the British Men of Letters, and you should join too. And Dean is incensed, and Sam is like, I guess I'll listen. And it's a little bit ridiculous because, like, I don't know, that they'd already burned that bridge to me. So I don't know why Mary would have jumped in so eagerly. Like, if you didn't want to hunt alone, go hunt with your children. who have loved and missed you so much that literal God sister thought, hey, this is what they need because they love and miss her so much. It is what it is. Okay. And then we also have, like I said, where Crowley's son was back in the picture, right? And that's because Crowley had kept him in the present day because originally Crowley dips on him. Horrible dad dies, after selling his soul for another 3 inches. And the son is going to America. And when he's on that boat, the boat sinks. And this boat just so happens to be a boat that's in a museum where people are now dying, teachers. And so Sam and Dean are like, hey, where's your son? He was supposed to be on that boat. Maybe he'll recognize some things. And we find out that it's the son's girlfriend. She had stowed away on the boat, then realizes he's not there. She gets into some trouble already, just being a woman at that time on a boat by herself. And then the boat sinks. And now that it's been exhumed, she is, wreaking havoc. And Rowena is like, I'm your grandmother. It's so nice to meet you. It's probably best if you go back in time, right? And you get on the boat and you can prevent all of this from happening. And he's just like, yeah, I guess you're right. That's the right thing to do. And I really don't feel like I fit in or belong in this time anyway. So, yeah, I'm going to go back and I'll get on the boat and I'll just go ahead and die because I know that I'll die and that's what's best for the timelines. And Sam and Dean are like, are you sure? Maybe we can figure out something else. And he's like, how? Most of the wreckage for the ship is on the bottom of the ocean. You're not going to be able to get her bones. You can't burn them. So she's a vengeful spirit you can't get rid of. This is the only way, is to prevent her from ever being a vengeful spirit. And at the end, Rowena's like, great job. I'm so proud of you. And Crowley's like, please don't do this. You don't need to go, my boy. He's very emotional for Crowley. And then you find out that because you find out that Rowena had that planned in a way because Crowley's like, what was all of that nonsense? And she goes, remember when you made me kill Oscar? There you go. Now your son is dead too. And he's like, that was your grandson. I'm your actual son. What is going on? And it's just this little piece of evil Rowena that you love and missed a little bit because Lucifer had really messed her up and made her scared, and Amara made her really scared. And so it's kind of nice to see her just coming back and being a little bit catty. Um, and I enjoyed it. Next round, we've got where everyone's trying to figure out if they enjoy the meta letters. I think Dean is on a hunt with somebody, and Sam is with Mary at. Sorry, my dog just sneezed really loud in the corner. I don't know if you heard it, but it was really cute. Um, Sam and Mary are at the British Men of Letters facility, and he's listening to the spiel, and he's like, "I'm kind of into it." And then they're going to go and like attack that vampire nest, and things just don't go perfectly, of course, and they don't know what to do when things don't go perfectly. So the boys obviously have to come in and be like, "We're here, we're saving people." So we've got British Men of Letters going on, Lucifer's somewhere, and Kelly is pregnant with his son. It'll be a son, by the way. And Kelly is like, the boys find her and they're like, hey, that was Lucifer and we should abort this mission. And she's like, I agree. I don't want Lucifer's son in the world. I'll abort this mission. And then she can't do it. She's holding the belly and she's like, oh, no, this kid will be a force for good. And then they're like, but Kelly, please. And she's like, I cannot. He is my son and he's good. He's good. And I promise. And I was very nervous. And then Cass touches her and he's like, oh, I will protect this child with everything. He's good. He's nothing like Lucifer. He'll be nothing like Lucifer. It'll be fine. And I found that really, really sweet. And then we remember that Lucifer is somewhere, right? And Lucifer is in hell, back in Nick's body, because I guess Crowley found that body at some point and has just been keeping it in hell. And now he's keeping Lucifer in hell, all locked up and stuff. And spoiler alert, doesn't go well for Crowley. Um, you know, Lucifer is locked up, and then Lucifer is not locked up, and then Lucifer I think gets locked up again. And then, it's just a lot of back and forth between Lucifer and Crowley. And um, Crowley does get away in the body of a mouse, which is interesting. Um, then our girl Claire comes back, and it's a werewolf case, and Claire gets bit. And this is one of the moments where a character that I love got hurt, and I think the first thing I thought was, "Oh no, this is going to destroy Jodie." And then my next thought was, "What? Maybe she can go live with Garth." And I was like, maybe they can all be like a super family. And then, of course, the British men of letters have a cure for werewolf bites as long as something hasn't happened. And so Claire is saved and survives, and she is not a werewolf. And it's one of those things where the stakes are in hell at this point, you know? Like, there are certain things that shouldn't have been messed with. Like, if you get bit, done. Vampire or werewolf. Just don't have the storyline where they get bit. Don't add the drama and then make it where the stakes are non existent anymore because then there's no care. Like, I was very upset when she got bit. I really thought that that was a thing, right? And now it's not a thing? Okay. Okay. Um, and then, yeah, it's Mick Davies that helps with that cure. And he's like, it's never worked before. And as soon as he says there's a cure, and he's like, but it's never worked before, anyone who's ever watched TV knows, yeah, right, it'll work this time, though. Obviously, that's guaranteed. And it does. And I'm glad because I love Claire, but also, like, the stakes, man. The emotional toll is not there, you know? Um, And then Sam and Dean are trying to figure out like where Kelly is. That's not going very well. They Cass is protecting her and like protecting her even from Sam and Dean. Then at one point, Cass loses her, and a Prince of Hell that I've never heard of appears, and another Prince of Hell appears. I think Osmodeus, and Osmodeus appears, and then who's the other Prince of Hell? The woman who like takes care of Kelly. And then Sam and Dean are able to get Kelly back from the woman, but she's very pregnant at this point. And then they lose her again, and Eileen is there. I don't remember when Eileen shows up, but Eileen is a deaf hunter, and she's deaf because when she was a baby, her parents were hunters, I believe, and there was a banshee. Maybe her parents weren't hunters. Maybe she was just raised by a hunter. Her No, I don't think they were. Um, there's a banshee and it wailed and it made her deaf as a baby and it killed her parents, but she survived it. And then she spent her whole life, hunting the thing that killed her parents. It's a very common theme in the hunter world. And so they fight the banshee together, which is great. And then she comes back at another point, and it's where they're fighting the Prince of Hell. And that female Prince of Hell, and I don't know why I cannot remember what her name is right now. And she disappears while she's holding Kelly. So she takes Kelly and they're both gone. But Eileen had already shot and she shoots a man of letters, a British man of letters, and he dies. And the protocol for that is then to kill the person who kills a man of letters. And the boys are able to talk Mick out of doing it. And you find out that in order to become a British man of letters, like you have to kill or be killed basically. You're put in a room with someone of your same class, and whoever walks out gets to be a man of letters, and the person who doesn't walk out doesn't do anything ever again because they're dead. And so he doesn't kill Eileen, which is great. Pointless because she dies very quickly afterwards from the men of letters. But for now, she's alive. Kelly's gone again. And then we have kind of like a break in that story a little bit because we have the twins come back, and we met the twins at Asa Fox's hunter funeral. The one where I was like, yeah, people are dying, blah, blah, blah. Mary shows up and she's an asshole. Um, and the twins I really enjoyed. It's Alicia and something else. And Alicia and her brother. and they, like their mother is dead. We don't realize it. There's some weird witchy witchcraft going on here, like some deep dark stuff. And the brother decides to take it on to keep his sister alive because she's been murdered. The mom's already gone. Like, it's a reprieve from the main storyline of season 12, but it's a pretty dark episode, and it definitely is just a bummer. Like, you didn't have to do it to him, you know? You brought him in, you made him likable, and then immediately just ruined their lives. It sucks. Um, and then we get to where Eileen dies. And that is There's Something About Mary. And that she dies immediately in the very beginning of the episode. She's torn apart by hellhounds. And then you hear someone like do a dog whistle, and you realize that it's the British Men of Letters. They're training a hellhound, and they've been killing American hunters all over the country. They're just getting rid of us. Us. They're just getting rid of them. And so they use Eileen basically as like hellhound bait to see if they're able to control it. And I could not believe that they killed her so quickly and unceremoniously and basically gave just no warning or information about it. Um, Especially because she was definitely vibing with Sam, and I really liked her. So a lot of hunters are showing up dead. The boys don't think about it being the Men of Letters, I don't think, but Mary starts questioning things. And it's just then they take over Mary's brain and they reprogram her. We also find out that Mary's been sleeping with Ketch, who is a British Man of Letters who's just an absolute dickhead. So it's just like she doesn't do anything likable. And then her brain gets taken over by the British Men of Letters, and she's a straight stone cold killer. And the boys are going to do everything they can to save her. But, you know, it's incredibly heartbreaking, what they go through to try to save her. And Dean has to like lock in and go into her brain and go into her memories. And he finally admits where he's like, everything that's happened in our life is your fault. Had you not, like made the bargain with Azazel in the very beginning, you would still be alive. This would have never happened. None of this would have happened. Like everything, the apocalypse, everything would have been avoided had you just not made a deal with a demon. And I know I have no right to talk because I've done it now, but come on, mom. Like, and now you're just ignoring us and you came back and you ignored us and I needed you. I needed you then. I need you now. And luckily she pops out of it. So you get just a fraction of a moment where she's a decent mother. And then, we move on. Cass has Kelly again. She is very close to giving birth and she is very, very aware that she's going to die giving birth to Jack, you know? And she feels so strongly, though, that Jack is going to be the best of the best of the best. He's going to save the world. And Cass feels the same way. And that's why he's been protecting her. And Sam and Dean are there, and Mary's there, and Lucifer is trying to get Kelly. He wants the son because his son is going to be more powerful than he is. An Nephilim is always more powerful than the parents. And when Kelly has a contraction, she like screams and it opens a tear in reality. Crowley is also there. And Lucifer, I believe at this point, Lucifer has burnt Rowena to a crisp. Like he legitimately like broke her neck and then set her on fire. And you see like this whole of a body. So we think Rowena's legitimately gone. And he had killed Crowley and done the mouse thing, but Crowley, as a mouse, found his body and just smoked into it once that was over. And so Crowley's okay. He's there with Sam and Dean. They're trying to fight Lucifer. Cass is also there to fight that Ripon reality. And while the baby's being born, this bright light happens. Mary is helping the baby be born. and the boys and Lucifer, and falling into that alternate reality. Or maybe it's just the boys fall in at this point. The boys go into that alternate reality and they see what's going on. They see alternate reality Bobby and they're like, Bobby? And he's like, fuck, do you know who I am? This is where we get alternate reality Bobby. And they're like, yeah, it's us. Yeah, I'm totally right. Okay, so we lose. The, we're in the alternate reality. Um, Crowley's there and he basically sacrifices himself trying to kill Lucifer to get the boys back on the other side. And then, Jack is born, Mary delivers him. The rift doesn't close. Lucifer is able to walk right back out. And then Mary is there to fight Lucifer. And she, like, brass knuckle hits him. And she's trying to push him back in, but he grabs her at the end, which is definitely something he has done in the past. That's how he got Adam/Michael in the pit, too. And they both go through the time rip, and and we think that she might be dead or she might just be gone before Mary's able to hit him with her brass knuckles. Lucifer is fighting Cass and he stabs him with an angel blade and Cass dies. So we lose Crowley, Cass, and Mary all basically within like 3 minutes for this season finale. And that is rough. And that's it. That's season 12, right? It's a total bummer. It's heartbreaking to deal with how Mary is with the boys. It's sad that Crowley loses his son. It's sad that we lose Crowley. We also at this point think we have fully lost Rowena. And now we're left with a Nephilim who could be terrifying or could be great. And we just have to trust Kelly. So, season 13. Season 13. Uh, the boys are trying to figure out how to get back to that alternate universe. They call it Apocalypse World. You can tell it's an Apocalypse World because it's gray toned. It's not black and white, but it's very close. It's exactly the same way they shot Purgatory, where it's also that like grayed out situation. Um, and while Mary and Lucifer on the other side, they are sticking together. A, because Lucifer is forcing her to, and Lucifer doesn't want to kill her because he's like, I know your boys are going to come for you, and I want to get the hell out of here. And we meet Apocalypse World Michael, who is the worst. And we meet Apocalypse World Bobby. We meet Apocalypse World Charlie. We meet Apocalypse World Kevin. And Apocalypse World Kevin kind of sucks because he's helping Michael because he feels like he's supposed to because he's a prophet of the Lord. Um, so that's kind of a bummer. But he's like, it's because I'm trying to get my mom, like I'm trying to go to heaven or get my mom to heaven or something like that, or get to see my mom again. That's why he's helping Michael. And Michael finds out, obviously, that there's this alternate universe, and he's like, I want to go there. It sounds easy. It sounds way better than this. An apocalypse world is what would have happened if the fight between Lucifer and Michael had actually happened, like had actually gone through. However, it's also a world where Mary never made the deal. So remember, Dean was mad at her and he was like, you should have never done this. None of this would have ever happened. The apocalypse would never happened. And we find out, yeah, it would have. Had John stayed dead, Mary doesn't have children. She stays a hunter and becomes even more of a hunter. The Michael Lucifer fight does end up happening and it destroys the world. And though Michael wins, he then just takes over and is incredibly egotistical. And I don't know how, but he makes everything basically grayscale. That's weird. And so you see what would have happened had Mary not made the deal with Azazel, which is basically that there was a no-win situation. However, at least in our reality, most of the world going on as normal, right? Is fine. Whereas in Apocalypse World, the world is dead. I don't know how, but there's sand everywhere. Everywhere. And then we've got our little baby Jack, who does not come out as a baby. He comes out as a full grown human who looks like he's about 17 to 20 years old. And he's adorable, but also incredibly powerful. And he's looking for his father, and the boys are very worried about him wanting his father. And then you find out that he thinks that Cass is his father. And I think that that is so warm and sweet because that's what Kelly had told him was that Cass would be his dad and Cass would look after him because she knew that she was going to pass away giving birth. So I think that's really very sweet. And so this season, for the most part, is split between like Apocalypse World, and we see Mary and we see Lucifer for part of that, and then our world, where we see Sam and Dean and Jack. So we get Jack. Like I said, he's not a baby. He is full grown, and he's very very powerful. And Dean is mean as hell to him, and it's very upsetting because Jack is so sweet and so cute. And I do feel like some of the stuff that happens later maybe could have been avoided had Dean not been so wary and mean of him. Dean is back to like season one, I don't trust anything that's not human type of Dean when he's around Jack. I just had hoped that he had grown up at least a little bit enough to understand that that's not how he should have behaved. Um, and then we meet Patience, who ends up being one of the girls who goes and lives with Jody. And Jody is obviously really good friends with Donna. I don't think Donna lives with them, but she's like near enough to them that they're always together. So it's Jody, Donna, Claire, Alex, and now Patience. And Patience is a psychic and the granddaughter of Missouri. And I don't know if you remember, but I mentioned Missouri in the first episode because she was in season one and then she's never seen again. And she's finally back here in season 13 and they kill her off immediately. It's really a bummer. But we get Patience and she's not a huge character, but I do enjoy the fact that she's part of our girl crew, you know, of these like badasses or hunters. And she's very scared to do it. But she does it, you know? She ends up being with Jody and Donna and the girls in the end. And I think that that's really lovely. There's an episode that I kind of really enjoy in the season. It's The Big Empty. And it is where Sam, Dean, and Jack are dealing with a shapeshifter, but the shapeshifter that they are dealing with is not the bad guy. The bad guy is her ex who's been like hunting her basically and stalking her and just not behaving okay. And he is killing her patients. And the way she does therapy is really, she's a grief counselor and a shapeshifter. So she'll look at the people that are lost, their pictures, and she'll go away and she'll come back and she'll look just like the person that's been lost. And that allows the people who have lost the person to say goodbye. And it's really cathartic for them. And they don't know how to explain it. And most of the time they just think it's, you know, their brain or a hypnosis or something. So they never question it. And I just thought that is a cool way to use your gift because you're a shapeshifter. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a bad guy, right? It's not like shapeshifter means you eat people or anything. You don't have to kill the person to take their skin. So it's nice to get this like ambiguity, you know, throughout the monsters. Just like Garth being a werewolf who doesn't eat people, you know? I don't think there's vampires necessarily that are good. Benny is good, but I don't know how he feeds. I think he's a blood bank feeder. So like Benny refuses to be the type of vampire they expect. And Garth and his family are not the type of werewolves you would expect. And the counselor, Mia, is not the type of shapeshifter you would expect. And then Amy wasn't really a bad kitsune. And it's really nice that on top of fighting monsters all the time, you do get the ambiguity of like some are good and some are bad because these are basically just humans with powers, which for the most part, that is what they're dealing with, you know? And I think that that's nice. It's also really a good representation of how stalking works. you know? Like listen to women. Give a woman a restraining order. Help women out, especially when people are changing their names and their lives, their professions, in her case her face, just to get away. And it's still not enough because when someone wants you. And I wish that that was more understood in normal world. Um, so we lost Cass again, not for the last time, but for a little bit. And Jack being really scared and worried, at one point he like calls out to Castiel, where he's like, Castiel, where are you? And like I said, he's a Nephilim, but he's an archangel Nephilim, which means he is more powerful than anything, basically. And so he woke Cass up. And monsters go to purgatory when they die. But demons and angels go to the empty when they die because they don't have souls. Um, and a demon is just a human for the most part. Some demons were made in hell by either Lucifer or Cain or Lilith, but a demon is usually a human who went to hell and then, like shit happens when you're in hell when you become a demon. That's how that works. But demons and angels both go to the empty, which I kind of have a problem with. The fact that like angels go to the empty. And I think it's because in this show, angels aren't necessarily this like overarching good, right? They're complex. For the most part, they're kind of shitty. So I have a hard time with it though, where I'm like, angels don't have souls? They don't have anything? What's their life force? Is that like, how does that work? For another day. I also am very confused by this because in the very beginning of the show, when Sam and Dean are killing people because they're possessed, that the demons are like, "Well, I'll see you later. I'll be coming right back." So at what point does the demon die where they go to the empty? And when did we decide that in the show? That is something I'm very confused by, and maybe I'm just missing something small. So argue about it, give me the information, agree with me, but please have a conversation with me about that because I'd love to know. Um, anyway, Jack is like, Castiel. And Castiel wakes up and he's in the empty, which is literally just nothingness, which is very interesting that it's not the darkness. It's something else. And then the empty wakes up because Cass is awake and that's the first time anything has ever been awake. And the empty is also Cass. Like it looks just like him. It's mirroring him. And it's like, what are you doing awake? Very crazy eyed. It's like, why are you awake? You're waking me up. I would like to be asleep. And it's like, I get it. Like another 5 minutes, please, Cass. And Cass is basically like, well, I can't go to sleep and you can't kill me because I'm dead and you're the empty. So how about you let me go back to Earth? Let me go to Earth. And the empty is like, why would I do that? Let me go to sleep. How dare you? I'm mad. I'm pissed. I'm angry. And Cass is just like, seriously, though, what do you want me to do? I can't just lay back down. I'm awake. I don't know how I'm awake, but I am. Jack woke him up. And so the empty's like, fine, and sends him back to Earth. Thank goodness. And that is not the last time we see the empty. And again, the empty is morally ambiguous, but violent. And I feel like that's the theme of the show is when you're not morally good, when you're in that moral neutral, then for some reason you're violent. And I think that that's a really bleak way to have written the entire universe of Supernatural. So I don't agree. Like if you're looking, right, and it's chaotic good, chaotic neutral, you know, um what is it? Chaotic evil, or then you have, you know, what is it? Something good, neutral good, whatever. It should be there. Not you know, moral ambiguity should be in the middle of that. And I can't even remember the rest of them now because I always play as chaotic good when I play D&D. So I forget what the other options are. So like I said, we get Cass back. They have a little cowboy time, which is always fun because Dean absolutely loves it. Cass knows he loves it. Everybody's just kind of like, oh, look at Dean. He's so happy to be wearing a cowboy hat. And I think for most viewers, we're all pretty happy to see them all in cowboy hats too. It's a good looking hat. I think it's a little bit of fan food there. And then now I will say that I personally like I'm not sexualizing any of these men, but I do know that a cowboy hat is an attractive looking hat. I don't have one anymore, but I did, and I have to tell you, I look good in that hat. I don't know a single person who can put on a cowboy hat where they don't look good in some way. Like I don't think there's a hair color or any because you can get any color a cowboy hat. Regardless, moving on. So most of this season is just them trying to get their mom back, and they're trying to figure out how Jack opened the rift in the first place so that they can do it again. Okay, scratch that. I'll delete this. Okay, Jack uses a dreamwalker to get to the alternate universe because he figures out that that's what dreamwalking is, and he goes over there, and so do um like I think yeah, Jody goes over there. Claire goes over there. Kaya, who's the Dreamwalker, goes. Jack goes. Sam and Dean go. But Jack gets separated from them all. Like, he doesn't even land at the same spot as them. So the others fight their way back. They all make it back, and Jack stays behind. But where he landed was where Mary is. So then Jack and Mary are together. And now they've got to figure out a way to open the door. And on the other side, on Apocalypse World side, they have Kevin still as the prophet, and Kevin has figured out that you can use archangel blood to get over there. And Lucifer made it back through at some point. So Lucifer's over here, Mary and Jack are over there, and then Kevin is aware of how to do it. It takes archangel blood and um Jack is on the wrong side, and on our side we have Donatello as our prophet, and we have for a couple seasons. Amara, I think we meet him in season 11, and Amara immediately eats his soul, and so now we have a soulless prophet, which is sometimes a little scary, but most of the time just fine. Okay, so here's the thing: is that we've got Donatello. Donatello has no soul, and Asmodeus, who is the Prince of Hell I mentioned earlier, he has come back to hell now that Crowley is gone. And he's like, I'm going to run things until Lucifer comes back. But then he kind of decides he really likes running things. And we also find out that Asmodeus, being the asswipe that he is, had the Norse gods capture Gabriel while Gabriel was in hiding in Monaco when we thought he had been dead this whole time. And he's had Gabriel this whole time, who he's been abusing and stealing his grace. And his grace has been making Asmodeus stronger. So he steals it a little bit at a time, drinks it like it's, pineapple juice, and uses that to make himself stronger. At the same time, Asmodeus is trying to get Jack to get the Sheetum out of the ground, which we find out that even Lucifer is scared of. And Lucifer's like, no, no, and had those locked up. And luckily, Sam and Dean show up in the nick of time with the actual Donatello. And Jack's like, who is this guy? And we find out it's Asmodeus. And Asmodeus is just trying to like teach Jack demonic ways basically and use his power. And Jack is just so oblivious and literally a newborn baby that he doesn't understand. So we also have Asmodeus in the mix this round. Um, like I said, Lucifer shows back up. He's not impressed with Asmodeus. We do end up rescuing Gabriel, and we use Gabriel's grace to open a rift long enough for the guys to go in and save Mary and Jack. and Rowena is using a spell in the rift to keep that open. Um, and Gabriel goes from like not talking and being really just psychologically tormented to being himself again, which is wonderful. And we're always excited to see Gabriel, but wary because as soon as we see him, they kill him off. Last time they had him killed off for what? This has been season 8 years. We haven't seen him in 8 years. So it's great to see him, but also stressful. Um, the guys are able to go and get their mom and get Jack, but the problem is that Jack wants to fight Michael and he doesn't get the chance to because the rift is closing. Michael makes it through the rift. Lucifer makes it through the rift again because Lucifer also went back to help find Jack because Lucifer wants his son. And Sam is like, no, you're going to stay here, and kind of keeps him from being able to come in. And Michael also doesn't make it in, but then they're able to use their Archangel Grace and open a rift and come into the world anyway. So, kind of pointless. Should have made sure that Lucifer was dead. Um, and this is when Mary is like, no, I'm going to stay here in Apocalypse World and I'm going to fight. Sorry, not sorry. And the boys are like, what? And she's like, these people need me. We've been fighting together for like 2 months. And it's like, that's cool, lady. I'm not getting into it again. Anyway, so then Sam and Dean are like, how about they all just come with us? Just bring them all. And that is the key things that happen in season 13 when they're able to close the rift and get everyone back and forth. Michael and Lucifer are now on this side, and then Lucifer's wreaking havoc and being awful, and Jack is not wanting to deal with them at all and is like, I'm not helping you. This is not happening. We also find out that Ketch, who we thought was dead from last season, is alive and has been working for Hell. Literally like bounty hunting for Hell, which is just straight messed up. Um and at the end of this season, we see Dean allow Michael to be the vessel because keep in mind Dean is Michael's like ultimate vessel goal, whether it's Apocalypse World Michael or our Michael. And Apocalypse World Michael takes Dean, is able to kill Lucifer. Finally, not Nick. Nick stays alive, but is able to kill Lucifer finally. And then is like, not giving this vessel back. And you're like, come on. Come on. And he's like, I like my skin. And it's like, yeah, I get it. I get it, Michael. I understand wanting to keep the Jensen Ackles skin. But come on, you had a deal. And Jensen does not have the ability to get rid of him because he's not aware that he's been taken over anymore. He allowed him to come in, and then he was stuck in like a dream world, which keeps happening. It keeps happening. It's ridiculous. Now, I will say that this season is better, in my opinion, than season 12. I really love Jack. He's so cute. And then another one of my favorite episodes is this season. I don't know if you're going to be able to guess it. Go ahead, try. Okay, I don't know what you said because that's crazy. It's episode 16. It's Scooby Natural. It's kind of just not a part of the rest of the storyline, but Sam and Dean and then eventually Cass get sucked into the TV and they're in a Scooby episode. And we find out how much Dean loves Scooby Doo. And as someone who also loves Scooby Doo, I just, I found it so incredibly adorable and enjoyable. And it's so funny seeing all of this messed up stuff happen, but in Scooby Land, and they just keep having to explain it. And then they try to be like, ghost or real and stuff. And the whole Scooby gang has like a crisis, like an existential crisis, and they're losing it. And then they get it together and eventually they're able to be like, never mind, it wasn't real, and they can leave and like leave the world how it should be. And I think, I don't know, I think it's really cute. We also have like, this is the season where earlier I was saying like Lucifer is with Joe, this is when that happens because when he came back from Apocalypse World, he had no grace. And so Joe is sharing her grace with him and he goes up to heaven with her and is God for a little bit because of all of the wars and everything that's been happening. There's almost no angels left and heaven is like severely lacking, so they just need someone. And so he's up there. He literally does nothing, almost gets bored trying to rule, and just nothing really happens on that. Then Rowena's there, it's great. We find out that she's not really dead and she is killing bad people, but she's killing them like a lot. And then she's killing a Reaper afterwards, which is not good because she's trying to get to Billy, who is Death at this point, because Billy was the first Reaper to die after Death died. So she took that spot, which is a crazy way to get promoted, but okay. So Billy finally comes up and she's just like, look, I cannot bring Crowley back. He's not even of this world, right? Like he's gone. He's gone, gone, gone. And Rowena is just really sad about that. And then we also find out that Sam is going to be who ultimately killed Rowena. And that's interesting to find out because they're all closer now. So it's sad and it's, I don't know. I didn't like finding that out and I was mad at Sam immediately. Where I was like, "How could you do that, Sam?" And I do know how and why he does it later, so I'm no longer mad, but when I first found out I was like, "This is interesting." Um and yeah, that's basically season 13. My goodness. I cannot make these shorter even with 5 seasons. I talk so much. There's so much TV. Okay, so now we're on to season 14. And something to keep in mind is that before Lucifer is killed by Michael in Dean's body, Lucifer wants Jack. He even went to Apocalypse World to get him. Like he legitimately wants him. I don't know if it's love or if it's control or if it's companionship, but Lucifer's like, "Yeah, come with me. We'll go be in the stars and blah blah blah." And then Lucifer keeps talking and Jack kind of realizes that he's a really bad guy, like totally malicious, and Jack's like, "You know what? No." And Lucifer, being Lucifer, who didn't get his way, is like, "You know what? Fine then." And slices him and steals Jack's grace. So now Jack is human. He went from being way more powerful than anything to human. And the problem with that is that he starts getting sick. And it's really sad. Now, on the other hand, Dean is possessed by Michael for like 2 episodes. And then the third episode, or in the second episode at the end, Michael just leaves Dean's body. And you're like, the hell is that about? And in the third episode, we find out that Dean has a weird scar and Jody is there. And Jody's like, I've been having killings all over the place with that scar, like with that mark and everything. And we find out that Kaya, who is the dream walker, who we think is killed in the last season, and was stuck in Apocalypse World, that her doppelganger is the person with the scythe that's making that weird scar. So it obviously can hurt Michael and it kills monsters. And we find out that she made it into this world. She jumped through. I mean, we see her jump through, but now we find out why. And we also find out that Michael is doing some weird blood magic-y stuff and he's mixing it with monsters to try to make them even more powerful and even more scary. And that is all of the things or people that Kaya's been killing, that Jody keeps finding the bodies everywhere. And so we correlate that they need that scythe to kill Michael, and Kaya won't give it to them because they were a little too aggressive with our Kaya. And something to note is like Apocalypse World, I never really loved any of that storyline. So, I don't really care about it. And they do bring back some of our favorite characters. And I think that was their way of saying like, "Oh, we'll bring them back and you'll love that, right?" But the problem is they don't bring anybody back as how they were. Bobby isn't surrogate dad. He's crotchety Bobby, without the love aspect. So that's weird. Also, at some point, like Mary and Bobby have a thing. Weird. And then we bring Charlie back, but it's not cute, adorable Charlie. It's stunted, jaded, mean, scary Charlie kind of. And it's a bummer. And I get that they're not the same characters and they were just bringing the actors back so we would be happy, but it's lackluster, you know? It's like saying that you gave someone a present, but really it's something that you had wanted and not the person you gave it for or gave it to, you know? Um Regardless, so Jack is trying to learn how to fight and be an actual human, and then he starts being like sick and just coughing a lot, and it's really sad. And then he dies. His body that is the Nephilim part, you know, like the angel part, is dying because it doesn't have the grace, and the human part can't keep up. And so he dies and he goes to heaven. And then while he's in heaven, he finds his mom's heaven, and he goes and he talks to her, and she's, you know, so happy to see him and so sweet and so kind. And then Cass shows up and he's like, Jack, we figured out a way that you could come back. Would you like to? And his mom is like, you haven't saved the world yet, so do what you got to do. Well, here's the thing, the way they figured it out was by Lily Sunder's magic. And that's the woman who the angels killed her daughter, thinking that her daughter was an Nephilim. And she's like, it's soul magic. Remember, every time I used the magic, a little piece of my soul got burned off. And now I'm very close to no soul. And they're like, okay. And she's thinking, well, that means I'm going to go to hell. So I don't want to do this. I don't want to give my magic to him. And because then I'll die. And they're like, but he's already, like, he's dying. He's gone. Please. And so, in an act of selflessness, she does it. And Jack agrees. He comes back to his body. He leaves heaven. And when he comes back, though, the problem is that now his abilities are tied to his soul. So if he uses his abilities at all, pieces of his soul burn away. And as we've seen, it's not great to not have a soul. You need one. Um, and, you know, at one point they fight, I want to say like a witch or something, but they have a snake. And then Jack's holding onto the snake, and the snake gets sick and is miserable. And Jack just like disappears it. And Cass sees this happen and doesn't say anything. And I get it because it's not malicious at all. It's just like you're in pain and now you don't have to be, until Jack accidentally kills Mary. And that is so sad because purposefully, he doesn't purposefully kill her. What happens is that he has to use his powers in a couple times, like when he tries to make friends and then something bad happens and he has to heal her and save her life. And they still don't want to be his friend after. And it's sad because he's just a baby. And then he defeats Michael. And then Nick, not Lucifer, because Lucifer is gone, but Nick, who's trying to resurrect Lucifer because now he's so tainted that he doesn't want to live without Lucifer and he doesn't know how to be. And he also, at this point, finds out that Lucifer is who killed his whole family after he's done all this stuff to try to wake Nick up from the empty. And you kind of see Nick like coming back, but then nothing really happens. Or not Nick, Lucifer coming back, but he doesn't make it all the way back because then after Jack has killed Michael, like obliterates him, then Jack kills Nick. And then Mary is like, Jack, how could you kill him like that? Like, I guess it was too brutal for her, which in my opinion, no, it wasn't. That guy sucks and has for years. Like, who cares how he died? It's not, he didn't even die like in the most brutal way he's killed someone on the show, like how he did Rowena. Jack kills him in a little bit more of a violent way than Mary likes. And then she's like, that's really concerning. That's not how you should be behaving, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, leave me alone. Stop making fun of me. And then he screams for her to shut up, and it accidentally obliterates her. Like, she's just no body, nothing, no screaming, nothing. She just legitimately vaporizes. And then he loses it. This is at the point where he like doesn't come home and he's hopping around all over the world because he doesn't know what to do. And then we have like Sam and Dean are, they don't know what to do because they're like, where is his soul? What is happening, you know? And then I'm trying to remember here. Where is his soul? You know? And then they find out that he killed his mom and they're livid. They do not know what they're going to do about that or how they're going to deal with that. And then God shows up and it's still God where we want to be friends, right? And God is like, hey, we need to get rid of this guy because he's causing problems. And the way he was causing problems at that point is like he heard everyone lying. Jack heard everyone lying around. And he was like, stop lying. You're all liars. Stop lying. Tell the truth. And so everyone's stuck telling the truth and it's causing way more of a problem because people have been lying for so long that now everything they're saying that's true really messes up society, which is an interesting thing to look at. And God obviously fixes that, and then he makes a gun, I think called like the equalizer. And he's like, look, whoever fires it, you're going to die, but it'll kill Jack. It'll kill anything powerful enough, you know? And he goes, obviously, I can't use it because I have to be alive because I'm God and I can't die. And I'm just thinking at this point, this is where I really start to be like, but this is God, right? Why would God make that kind of weapon? Why couldn't you just make a weapon that doesn't take a life when you're trying to also take the other life? You know what I'm trying to say? Like, why does it have to be the person who uses it and the target? We can just make it just a target type of gun. Or why don't you snap your fingers and do it? It's very bizarre that God is behaving this way. And I am not wrong because they're like in the cemetery and they find Jack and Jack has no soul. And at one point before like he goes completely bananas, he is scared and they put him in a box that's warded thinking it'll hold him. It doesn't hold him, but he goes in so willingly. He's like, okay guys, if you think that's what I need to do for now. And it's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking, you know? Like we had to watch him die, resurrect, and now this, and it's just because he's so cute. Anyway, God is basically like, okay, it's time to shoot him now. And they're like, what is going on actually? Like, why aren't you just doing something about this? What? And God is like, because you guys are my favorite show. And it's like, what? What? And that is the gist, is that God orchestrates everything, which duh, but like he's orchestrated everything to make it a more entertaining story for him to watch unfold every single time he does anything to any of them. And he's also like, yeah, but I've also brought Cass back to life a whole bunch and I do all of this stuff. And the guys are just like, we can't. We can't. We can't kill Jack. We don't want to. And Jack's adorable. And he starts, like, God starts kind of throwing a fit. And then Sam freaking shoots him with the equalizer, hits him in the shoulder. And then God's like, all right. All right. You want to behave like this? Well, then fine. Then I'm just going to make the world end. And he immediately like does this and breaks Jack's neck. And you're like, what the? Why? Why? And Jack is gone. Like I don't think he breaks his neck. He does the light thing because his eyes burn out for sure. And I was just like, what the hell? And then, and And then he's like, and he opens up like the gates of hell. So everything that Sam and Dean have ever hunted is like coming back up from the ground from the cemetery that they're in. They're covered in demons. And it's Sam, Dean, and Cass. And they're stuck and they all grab like iron bars and stuff like that because you can fight certain types of monsters with iron. And then God is like, welcome to the end. And I have to tell you, it's the best season finale in a while. It's really good. It's like a great build up because it's scary at the end. Like everything is coming at them. Jack is dead, and you're just like, what? God, who's God? Like all of a sudden, he went from being like, we like him. I loved him in the first couple of seasons. And then I was like, I feel like they could have made him a little less snide, and now he's a straight villain. He's like, welcome to the end. And Dean, like, I don't know, when he grabs the irons and he passes them to like Sam, and Cass is there, and then they won't leave Jack's body, so they carry Jack's body into this like mausoleum underneath. Although that might already be season 15. I think it just gets it where they're ready to start fighting, and that's it. And it is a good cliffhanger, especially since the next season is the last season. And this is where I was talking about, where I was like, each season has like this progression of, what am I trying to say? This progression of like baddies, where it's season one, it's like a Prince of Hell. Season two, same Prince of Hell. Season three is, what? Lilith. Season four, Lilith. Season five, Lucifer. Season six, The Smattering. Season seven, Leviathan. So, Season eight, who's the bad guy in season eight? I think season eight's bad guy is like a mixture again. Metatron, probably. Best to say it's, well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. We haven't had a good big bad. Because season 10, who is our big bad in season 10? It's Dean himself. It's the mark of Cain, So season 11, it's Amara. It's the darkness, and that's not even a big bad. It goes like big and then nothing. And then season 12, the bad again is Lucifer and sometimes Hitler. And then season 13, the big bad is Apocalypse World Michael. Lucifer also, but definitely Apocalypse World Michael. Season 14's big bad is Jack some of the time, Michael some of the time. The smattering of monsters, we don't even talk about it anymore, because at this point, who cares? And then the ultimate big bad at the end of season 14 and all of season 15 is God himself. And that is a reach. Like, here we go. I'm going to try to do it in 10 minutes because this is a long episode. So we pick up right where we left off. They grab Jack's body. They go into the monastery. Cass is beside himself, upset. And then a demon starts possessing Jack, and he's like, I'm going to be able to help. And I don't have any eyes. He's fun. He's so fun. And they get out of there, and they realize that God has just let out all the monsters that they've been fighting. And so they get helped by Ketch, who all of a sudden is legitimately trying to do the right thing. Probably has a little bit of a problem with how he's been living his life as a British man of letters and then as a agent for Asmodeus and hell. And so now Ketch is also trying to help, and then Rowena is obviously trying to help, and then it's just like everyone is trying to get on board. And at the same time, God is on the other end, and he's bothering Amara, and he's like, let's just leave this all behind. Who even cares? And Amara's like, please give me space. Like, I'm darkness. I want the space, you know? And then we see Billy, and Billy's in the empty, and Billy goes and grabs Jack from the empty, and the empty is standing there and smiling, and he's like, what is going on? And the empty still hasn't gone to sleep from when Cass messed around. And obviously the empty was real crummy last season, because when Jack died, he went into heaven and was like wreaking havoc because he thought that Jack belonged in the empty and not in heaven. That Nephilim soul is kind of hard to decide which way you go. And so the empty is still awake, and Billy's like, I've got a plan to stop God from how he's behaving. And will you help me? And we find out that Billy is just trying to become God, and she's basically going to use Jack as a bomb, and Jack's going to die anyway. And Jack is fine with this. But Jack has his like body again. The guys have been fighting monsters like nonstop. And then Jack comes back, and then they're doing trials for Jack. And these trials are, I don't remember. It's like Eileen comes back. She was a ghost that was released from hell. And then we find out that God hasn't been letting anybody that the boys like go to heaven, be it Kevin Tran or Eileen. They've been stuck in hell. My goodness. what are his trials? I know that Jack's not allowed to use his powers at all because it would alert God that he's back on Earth, and God is worried about that. So it is, I know that one of them is going to the Garden of Eden, and one of them is like a test of basically his strength and his character. And so he gets his soul back in the Garden of Eden because he's the right type of human. And then he gets something from Adam and a Seraphina, I think, um, that's supposed to be like a bomb, basically, that will kill God. And that's around the time that Dean finds out that Billy wants to be God and wants to reset everything. And that means Eileen would die, and, you know, Dean and Sam would probably be gone because none of them should be alive anyway. And then, you know, God is playing like mind games on Sam and Dean, and they're like, look how the world would be if I'm gone. And you see it, and it's bleak. You know, some of it's nice, and then things just go out of hand and everyone's dying. And then Jack completes all the tasks, and he's like, I'm fine with dying, guys. I'm fine. And they even enlist um, our world Michael. So we finally see Adam again after 10 years. And then Michael is supposed to fight God, but he doesn't because he's God's, you know, boy. And then Lucifer shows up on God's side because God pulls Lucifer out of hell, or not hell, out of the empty. Okay. And then Lucifer is not successful either. And there's all of this infighting, and Jack, who's sitting there gathering power, is picking up all of the godly power happening from Lucifer and Michael fighting, and then God making Sam and Dean fight. And then you find out that they've just been charging up Jack, and Jack gets over to God and is able to take all of his power from him. And God becomes a human, and Jack becomes God. And the one thing that has been pissing Dean off the whole season is he finds out that, like I said, God has orchestrated every single thing that's ever happened. So Dean is wrestling with not having free will and like not handling it well. And so all of a sudden he's like, I just want the free will. That's what I want. Nothing different, just free will. And when Jack becomes human, he's like, I'll be there. I'll be there in the rain and the sunshine, and I'll always be around, but I'm going to fix some things. He fixes heaven, so it's not just you being stuck in your best memories, but actual heavens where people can interact and stuff. And he is a more hands off God, so free will is once again reinstated or instated for the first time. And that's like the end of the story. It would be the perfect ending, you know? God becomes a human. Humans he loves so much, he finally is one, and he has to live that way. Jack is what Kelly thought the best thing for humanity. And he's able to, you know, change everything for the better. Sam and Dean get to walk off into the sunset. Mary's in her perfect heaven with their father. He's finally in heaven. And then there's another episode. And there shouldn't be. It should have ended right then. That should have been the end of the show. But it's not. There's one more. The last episode, we basically see the boys on a hunt. It's a few years down the road, and Dean gets hurt on a hunt. A very, like, I don't know, pedestrian way. Like, he gets pinned by a wooden, like, stake, basically, and he dies. And you're just like, what the hell? Why? Why was this necessary? It wasn't. It wasn't. But he's dead. And Um, and then we get to see like Sam have his life, and he has a son. He names him Dean. He rides in the Impala. At the same time, we're seeing interstitials of Dean in heaven with his mother and his father and Bobby and Joe and Ellen and everyone, you know? And then Sam's son grows up, and Sam gets old, and he's in the Impala, and then he's on his deathbed, and his son is way too young for however old we're saying Sam died at. Um, and then he passes away, and he goes to heaven, and he meets up with everybody, Sam and Dean. are together again. And they're in the Impala and they're riding, and Carry On My Wayward Son comes on. Ooh, I got like chills because I feel emotional about it. And it's a good ending. My camera has turned off and I'm not going to go turn it back on for just one more minute. It is a good ending, but it was an unnecessary ending. I think it would have felt more complete to end it the other way with a happy ending, to end it at episode 19, or to carry it out one more episode if you needed the full 20. But I do think it's beautiful. I also think that they could have sped it all up and put the entire last episode in the final, in with Inherit the Earth, and put those on together, and maybe just cut out some of the exposition from episode 19. But they didn't, and that's okay. At least we got another 45 minutes of the Winchesters, of everybody we love after 15 years. So we've gone to black, and so has Supernatural. Thank you so much for listening, for watching, for the times that the camera is there and working. And I'll see you next time when I do my next episodes of the Binge It Babe podcast. For now, goodbye and good hunting. Don't forget the salt. Hey babes, it's me, your Binge It Babe friend, Candace Estelle. And while I clean up the salt from my Supernatural episodes, I'm thinking about how kind of dissatisfied I am with how those episodes went. Because what I found is that each episode is really, really long, 2.5, 3 hours long, even. And I still feel rushed. I feel like I'm talking as fast as I can and I'm doing things as quick as possible, and I'm missing nuances and things maybe I wanted to say or talk about. And on top of that, I'm more stressed because I feel under pressure of time, you know? So I think I'm still going to post what I've done because I don't feel like eating this pie again tomorrow or going and buying another one of these pies. And B, I don't think it's bad. I think it's a learning opportunity. And I think especially as people who want to make content, or that's me, I want to make content. I want to bring joy and smiles and conversation into people's houses and hearts. I think it's really important to show where we're starting at. I am green. I am green as Jack on his second day of life, right? I am walking around nude. I mean, I'm not right now because the camera's on, but I'm not good at this yet. I'm great at conversating. I'm really personable and I'm fun and I'm funny. And that's why I wanted to start this, because I know all of those things about me and I know I have the capability to do it. But the way I'm doing it right now feels too stressful. So I think what I'm going to do from here on out is I'm going to post these episodes also because even if they're not perfect, I'm still working kind of hard to do them. I'm picking out outfits, I'm buying food for these things. I'm sitting here and spending literal hours not only talking, but then more hours editing or shortening it a little bit because I don't plan on editing much, but taking out the filler where I get confused or stuck or the camera turns off on me because I cannot figure out how to stop it from turning off after half an hour. And I think all of those are really important, not only to you guys to see that I'm just a human being doing my human being best, but also I want to see myself in a year having kept up doing this, having tried my absolute best, and seeing how my cover art changes and maybe my environment changes and my delivery gets better. Maybe my equipment gets better. I want to see myself grow. So I don't want to take away these episodes, but I do want to say I don't think they do Supernatural a full service. I think I do a great job with some parts, and then that means that other parts have to get clipped and cut. And so I've decided that how I plan on doing this from here on out is, especially with maybe more serious shows or shows that have the hour-long slot, which are actually 45 minutes, I think I'm going to do them by season, not by show. Because by season, even, is like 20 plus hours that I am trying to condense into a few minutes. And I'm trying to do that for 5 seasons at a time. I'm about to film my next episode because I've already made that food. I wasn't expecting Supernatural to take me so long. And I was just thinking about it and I was like, I don't want to do a disservice every single time. So that's the decision that's been made. I'm going to do this season by season for each show, which means Supernatural should have had 15 episodes. That's my doorbell. So I've got to run. But I hope you guys enjoy the episodes I have, and I can't wait to do more of this journey with you. Bye, babes.